When we start talking college football, between the cocktail party, the Iron Bowl, Tennessee and Alabama, then of course you've got the Red River game and Texas A&M, Texas. I mean, and even you guys in LSU have had a big rivalry. When
Florida,
Oklahoma,
Tennessee, Florida, LSU. I mean, if you look at the games,
what it's going to start looking like if Oklahoma and Florida are playing each other every year. There's going to be some nail biter games that are going to freaking piss each other off, and we're going to hate each other. Watch, we're going to hate each other before long.
Going to.
Yeah, true.
I don't need a couple games to get there. Look.
Welcome back to the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Watkins. And if you love college football, you're definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. I'd like to welcome into the show my boy from HighTop Sports, Mr. Shelton, a Florida fan. We can bust his chops as much as possible during this show. We're going to talk about a few things and just little banter back and forth between possible rivals. So welcome to the show, man. How's it going?
It's going good, man. I appreciate having me on. The intro had me fired up. I was ready to run through a wall after that one there, man. That was good stuff. I loved it.
Hey, thanks, man. I like that. Good deal.
Yeah,
hey, I know obviously we've been talking a lot about this whole possibility of having the rivalry and stuff. And I know that, you know, when we were on Ty's show together and we kind of busted each other's chops a little bit about Florida and Oklahoma and stuff like that. And I think that was kind of before we knew that there was a possibility that there was going to be them playing each other on a yearly basis. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's funny because I think their record right now is 1-1. And the one time we beat you guys, I think it was a pretty big game. I can't remember. You might remember what game it was. But
yeah, I don't remember that shit.
Okay. I'll ask Major, right? But yeah, so I was actually talking with Cody about it because obviously our big games right now that we count on every year for Florida is Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, right? Those are kind of the big ones in the SEC that we always count on. And I said, look, man, to be honest with you, the Kentucky game, I don't really care for. People call it a rivalry game. It's not a rivalry when they've been our little brother for so long. I understand they've beat us the last few years, not taking anything away. That's not taking any jabs. But in reality, over the past 2 decades, we've been their daddy.
Dude. Yeah. Y'all beaten them 20 times in a row or something like that before that. 25 times.
Yeah. So it's more of a habit than a rivalry, right? So losing that game to me, I never really get fired up for it. It's just you just know that weekend you play Kentucky and you move on. Tennessee, again, we've been their bigger brother, even though they've gotten better over the last few years. We've still been their bigger brother. But that game, I will miss that game if we were to lose that game every year. It's just a fun game. Playing in Knoxville is always fun to watch. It always is an electric game. So that one to me is good. So obviously those two seem to be going away. But look, man, for me, I love this. I love Oklahoma coming in. I love Texas coming in. I love a challenge. I love a good game. And I think both of those teams have a great culture behind it, a great football program compared to like a Kentucky. Kentucky, when we went to, I was telling Cody this last night. When you go to the games, I was at the Kentucky-Florida game. When we were trying to talk shit to these Kentucky guys, they're just sweet dudes. They're not even fun to razzle dazzle with, man. Like they're just genuinely good guys. And I was like,
they probably would have been completely different at Rupp Arena, but
yeah, for sure. I was like, hey, what do you guys? I was like, is there a basketball game this weekend? And they're just like, shut up, man. Like they didn't want to smoke, right? And I was like, this is no fun. Texas fans, I think they're kind of, I don't know too much about them, but the Oklahoma fans that I've come across, you guys are rowdy. So I enjoy that. I appreciate it. I think it's good for football. I think it's good for building it up. But look, I'm excited about it. I think at this point, there's so much change happening that if we try to resist it, it's just going to cause us to be exhausted and frustrated. So we need to
Right.
embrace it fully on because it's happening, whether we want it to or not, and then just let the
Listen.
dust settle and then have an opinion about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing with me is like, at first I think that everybody that is an Oklahoma fan, you immediately you figure they're not going to lose the Texas game. That's one of the biggest rivalries in sports. So that one's going to stay. But I think that the initial thought was everybody was thinking, well, maybe Arkansas or maybe A&M again, because there's a natural rivalry there. I think Missouri is definitely probably going to be one of theirs, which sucks. Um,
True.
but I'm excited if it is Florida because I mean, there's there's those places in the country that you think about that these are the places that you go to this place and if you win there, that means that you played one hell of a game and dealt with I mean, there's not too many places like the Swamp, where it's going to get rowdy. You think of like Penn State or, Death Valley, places like that, Texas A&M, where when you go to those places, you're going to get everything that you can get from the fan base. And, you know, before the game, it'd be great. I hear you guys have great tailgate and all that kind of stuff, but during the game, they're going to get on you and it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for that first trip out there, man. I'm gonna come and invade your house and freaking kick it, and then whoever wins, we'll figure it out. But
I
I'm excited about that one.
I think because of the history of both programs makes it a little more exciting. The Texas one is more of just because Texas has such a big brand. But I don't. It's interesting to see how it's going to do. And thinking about, I mean, you guys are winning the lottery here coming to the SEC. I mean, what are you leaving behind? West Virginia and Kansas. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. I
there's
mean,
nothing
even
there to
whatever
leave.
they
I
get
mean,
from the Pac-12 doesn't matter. I mean, and the thing is that that's their
no.
survival. That's their survival is whatever they get from the Pac-12. But the truth of it is, the Big 12, had they've gotten Brett Yormark 5-10 years ago, they'd probably be fine. But it's been headed in this direction for a long time. I think most Oklahoma fans at this point are excited about the move, even though you know that you're about to run into a freaking buzzsaw. You know what I mean? You're about to walk into the blade, but bring it on. It's going to be a lot of fun. Everybody else is going to have to do it too, and it's just going to be a week in, week out battle. And we'll see how they adjust to it. But I feel like if there's anybody that's prepared for that, it's going to be a coach like BV with having been at Clemson and been in big games like that. At Oklahoma, same thing. You know, um, we'll see how long it takes to get there. As far as Texas is concerned, I don't know whether or not they're going to end up in this as another one of those teams. I know they're going to want them. They're definitely playing Oklahoma, and I can't imagine them playing anybody but Texas A&M as their second one.
Got
Their
to.
third being a Florida game, they would lose their shit. You know what I mean? You would have them bitching day one, which would be funny. But it's I
Yeah,
have a
it's
go ahead.
good.
I have a hard time believing that they're probably gonna that would be the case, and I hadn't really seen that anywhere else, but I did see that on the show that you and Cody did, but I feel like probably that's more of an Arkansas thing because they do have a bit of a rivalry themselves. I
Sure.
feel like that's probably their three. They're not going to give up. The A&M may not want to play them, and they don't want to play Oklahoma either on a year to year. But there's no way that's another one of those rivalries, and they haven't played in over 10 years. But it made more money than everything else. I mean, even though they just don't want to play it because they don't want to get beat all the time. A&M, but I don't know. I
So
just don't see that happening. You've got to play that one for sure. You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, so I'll get to that part of how the scheduling worked too, because there is, I think, some math behind it, and I think probably
Yeah.
what's happening right now is just a lot of noise of fans talking about what they want. Because think about it, right now, what's being projected is Oklahoma, Texas. You're going to play Florida and Texas as your two, and then who's going to be your third, right? I mean, Missouri maybe. So then you've
Probably
got
Missouri.
there's
Yeah.
so, and
Hmm.
then Florida's got Texas, Georgia, and Oklahoma is being projected. Bama's getting projected. LSU, Tennessee, and Auburn. Like who the hell's getting Vandy? You know what I mean? Like
Right. Right.
someone's gonna be
That's got to
pissed they
be
don't get.
Tennessee for sure. Tennessee's going to get Vandy for sure, but then they got to get Alabama. So then who's their third? It's got to be Auburn because the Iron Bowl is not going anywhere, right?
The Iron Bowl is Alabama and Auburn, right? Talking about
Right.
Tennessee.
Yeah, but I'm saying like, okay, well, no, but okay. So Tennessee's third would be, I don't know who their third would be.
So the math
I was thinking
on
it was going
that.
to be you guys. Yeah, but maybe
Yeah, I
not.
mean, I would prefer that, but the math how they projected Saban's schedule is they took the last decade and they took the winning percentage, the highest winning percentage, and basically uh, ranked it out. And Tennessee fell in the lower tier, while Auburn and
Correct.
LSU fell in the higher tier. So I'd imagine they put Oklahoma and Texas into that same formula, and I just don't see. I mean, who's Georgia going to get?
Right. Well, Georgia would
Tennessee
have to get.
probably.
It has to be Auburn. And it has to be you guys for sure. Well, who's their third?
I mean, you can't have Auburn. Auburn if that
Auburn.
would that
Auburn
was
Georgia is the oldest rivalry in the South. You know.
so Georgia. I mean, Auburn, Florida, Kentucky, maybe.
That's
Because
the
again, if you
one.
think
I
of
think
lower
they're
tier,
saying either
right?
Kentucky. They're saying either Kentucky or South
Or
Carolina.
South Carolina. Yeah, yeah. So then
Mhm.
who's South Carolina going to get? Georgia then? Um,
Oh, you guys?
we're already full. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
just
that's yeah.
Texas
This got to
A&M
move
still in
around
there.
somewhere.
Maybe Texas A&M.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's just I'm glad it's not me that has to figure that thing out. It's
Yeah, and you've already got and they've already got Saban pissed about it. He doesn't like that he's going to have to continue playing LSU every year. I mean, which that's turned into a rivalry. But he's going to bitch about whatever anyway. He doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he's going to
well
complain.
he so he
But
point.
he's
I
the
saw
guy
his
that could probably make a move out of it. He's the one that can make them move it.
So to be fair, like I saw his video because obviously he always gets kind of tagged with the being the baby, but his comment was like, "Look, there's no benefit of us playing these games." He's like, I would love to play 9 conference games, but where's the value? I can play 8 of them
The
and and
value.
still make it in. So why kick my ass for an extra week when you've got schools like Cincinnati flowing in here, USC who plays a cupcake all year long, right? So there's no point ever to do that. You know, you're just hurting yourself. And that's where look, this league is going to start to evolve because the SEC is just becoming a predominant
There's no
conference
week off.
in everything. I mean, you have allowed us to take over basketball. Alabama is the overall #1 seed, and SEC dominated this weekend in basketball. I was shook. I was adamant on my bracket that I was not bought into the SEC because
It's still the
everybody
Big
was last
12 though
year.
when it comes to hoop though. That's the only one that I mean, it's still
I
and they
don't
got
know who
because
went.
they
So
still have
Baylor went down this weekend.
right. But then you've got
Kansas went down this weekend. Who was the #1
mhm,
seed?
right.
I don't disagree with you, and I
Well,
was
you got
bought in on
Houston
Big
that's
12.
coming in. You're probably going to have Arizona that's coming
Houston's
in.
not Big
Kansas
12.
isn't going
They're
to.
Houston's Big
Houston is
East, aren't
Big
they?
12 as of next year. They are.
Oh well, I'm talking about right now though. And so all you got
Yeah,
right now,
but
I think, representing the Big 12 is Kansas State, I believe, right?
K-State, I guess they are the only ones left.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying you got Arkansas still there, Bama still
Dude,
there.
Arkansas, that was a game too, man. That was such
I
a
think
good game.
Mizzou's still in it, right? Or they lost.
Mm, I I don't think so. I thought they lost.
Kentucky lost, so that was another one
Kentucky got beat.
that was
Yeah.
humming. Tennessee's still in it though. Tennessee's still playing. So there's 3
Yeah,
SEC
that's
teams.
surprising.
And look, I think Alabama has a pretty clean stretch to get to the.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
does
no doubt.
Tennessee.
And
Tennessee's playing FAU
right.
next week.
Right, but I mean, when you start looking at it, I mean, when we're projecting out for the next few years, you got to figure that with Houston, and then of course Baylor. I mean, Baylor and Kansas ain't going nowhere. They should stay where they are now. Obviously, Bill Self has been out for the last 2 weeks, and they lost that game barely to Arkansas. You know, if they end up with, they're talking about Gonzaga also, who they're moved on. So the Big 12 could be, it's going to be in with Arizona. And of course, they lost in the freaking opening round. So that was kind of weird, but it's still going to be a premier conference when it comes to that. Aside from that, though, I think you're right. I don't think that there's another sport that you can really say the SEC doesn't completely
Baseball,
own.
we
Baseball
just
owned, softball
gymnastics,
owned. Yeah, I
swimming.
mean, all of it. I mean,
When you
any of
think
the
softball, you think Texas, Tennessee, and Oklahoma in softball. When you think
women's
women's
basketball
basketball,
is
Tennessee, South Carolina, Baylor, and Connecticut. Those are the 4.
right,
That's it.
right.
um, but basketball, what I'm getting, like, I'm not disagreeing with the Big 12, but you've allowed SEC to now be more relevant. Before it was like Kentucky and Florida. That was it. You've now allowed every other team be a part. You've got Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky, Bama,
Right. Well,
Mizzou, Arkansas. The
just
damn
by
near the whole
sheer the
conference made it.
money that's coming into the conference because of everything else that wins, it has to kind of be that way.
And
You
think
know what
about
I
it.
mean?
Texas is
It's
going to
like,
be part of it. They're a nasty seed this time go around, men and women. So that's what I'm saying.
yep.
Like what used to be a Big
Well,
12
that's
and an
another Big 12 for
ACC.
now, but yeah, moving forward,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, hey, listen, it's just, I wonder whether they keep that coach around. They definitely should. Like, I was kind of talking about that with the guy from Texas yesterday on Twitter, but they'd just be like Texas to freaking be like, well, maybe we're just going to move on and try to find another quote unquote big name coach that, and screw the whole thing up. That's just how they roll. But
there,
yeah, I don't
there's
see any reason why the SEC is not going to continue to be the premier conference in basically every sport in the country.
And the reason I said that is like eventually you always kind of felt that way. We've always joked about it, and other conferences get frustrated when you say that. And again, I'm sure we're going to get hit with this pompous, SEC big headed nonsense or whatever. But when you look at it like that, it starts to look. You start to look at it, and it's like, why are we even playing anybody else? Right? They kind
Right.
of they get to make it in while we're beating each other up, and we are the premier conference education wise. I mean, we just dominate in literally everything. It's like the SEC. I say we part of being part of the SEC could pick
Mhm.
up and just we're done with the NCAA. We're gonna go do our own thing, and everybody would pack up and go follow.
Yeah.
They would function just fine. They wouldn't even skip a beat. They have enough powerhouse teams that they could drive plenty of games to watch. Now, when you add Texas and Oklahoma, you don't need to add anybody else, and you're going to be okay. Even with the loss of Michigan and Ohio State, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think that because Michigan and Ohio State, big whoop, I mean, and we'll get into that in a few minutes too, as far as like what they're talking about with their schedule coming up, which is crazy. And I mean, we can kind of segue into that from this. But to me, when you look at this schedule, no matter how it ends up shaking out, because I'd love to know what it's going to really look like at the end. But the truth of it is, who cares? It's going to be freaking great drama week after week after week. You have the best rivalries in the game, aside from Michigan, Ohio State, really is right in that conference. When we start talking college football, between the cocktail party, the Iron Bowl, Tennessee and Alabama. Then, of course, you've got the Red River game and Texas A&M, Texas. I mean, and even you guys in LSU have had a big rivalry. When
Florida,
Oklahoma,
Tennessee, Florida, LSU. I mean, you if
exactly.
you look at the
Imagine
games,
what it's going to start looking like if Oklahoma and Florida are playing each other every year. There's going to be some nail biter games that are going to freaking piss each other off, and we're going to hate each other. Watch, we're going to hate each other before long.
going to.
Yeah, true.
I don't need a couple games to get there. Look, so if you take any game during the Big Ten outside of the Ohio State Michigan game, which is a classic game, I enjoy tuning in at
Yeah,
noon to watch that game.
sure.
I don't care about Ohio State Penn State. I don't care about Michigan Penn
Nope.
State. I don't care about
Nope.
Ohio State Wisconsin. I don't care about Ohio. None of
And
those
who
games.
cares
Now
about
I'm not a
SC
Big Ten.
against any of them? You know what I mean? Like, who gives a shit about that? You know?
USC. Yeah, and again, I mean,
I
I know
guess
I'm not
I
a Big
guess
Ten
there's
guy,
some
so
draw to it to start with, but to be honest with you, I hate the Big Ten. I can't stand watching the Big Ten. It's trash football.
yeah. I mean, when I watch Rutgers and Ohio State grind it out, I'm
Bro,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, with that crappy I mean, you're talking I mean,
Give me
everybody was
Bama
talking
against
about
anybody.
Illinois all last year, and because they were beating Maryland and Northwestern and all these other
Maryland's another one.
crappy Indiana teams, and you're like, "Who gives a shit?" As soon as they play somebody, they're toast. It's freaking yeah. I knew where that was headed. I knew where
I'll
that was
watch
headed.
Alabama play anybody just because it's always gonna be a fun game. Georgia versus
Sure.
anybody right now because everybody wants to beat them. And again, with SEC talent, everyone kind of feels like they have the ability. Now, Georgia, Missouri, obviously, I turned that one on because it was a nail biter. That typically wouldn't be an exciting one, but you got Alabama,
Yeah.
Auburn. That's always a classic. Florida, Tennessee, Florida, Kentucky finds its way to razzle dazzle everybody. Auburn, I would say, is a
Yeah.
pretty boring team. If you got Auburn versus somebody, I can say, yeah, you're right. Like I don't really tune in to watch Auburn unless it's versus
Bama.
Alabama. Auburn, LSU is kind of boring.
Right.
LSU,
Now, what's
Bama,
going to happen with
obviously
Hugh Freeze
classic.
back in the league though? Now, is it going to get better for Auburn? I mean,
So
he
so it
plays
could
he plays
even
a
when
fun brand of offense. So
Yeah, for me, the Auburn brand has never really been like a very. Again, I go back to the fan base. Auburn's fans are usually pretty cool. They're pretty respectable. I've never had any beef with them, and so
Sure,
with
sure.
that, they're a very vanilla brand, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
with navigating through the SEC and through other fans.
It's like
So
Baylor,
even if they
kinda
aren't
like
good,
Baylor. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, they're just look nothing. It's not a shot. It's just who they are. And so if they're on TV, like I don't really care to see them lose. And the only time I want to
Right.
see them win is when it's against Alabama, right? But them versus LSU, take it or leave it. I don't care. If LSU wins, I say good. That just means they're going to be higher ranked when we play them. You know what I mean? So I never really get too fired up for an Auburn game because they don't really have any effect on Florida being in the West.
Right.
So Texas
Right.
A&M, love watching Texas A&M. I think the atmosphere in Texas A&M is incredible. I think the fan base is incredible. I love the 12th man.
Have you
I
been
love
there?
Jimbo.
Have you been there? Have you
I've
been to
not.
Kyle?
No. No. I just
If the next time you get a chance, you should do it. Now, literally, if you get seasick, maybe you don't want to because that stadium it moves like a boat. It really
that's pretty
does.
sick.
It's insane. It's one of the craziest places I've ever been. Now it's a little weird down there in College Station. A
Yeah, I've
little
heard.
weird.
Heard.
but the atmosphere at game time, once the game's over with, just leave and you're good. But aside from that,
Well, now I want
it's
to
an
stay.
unbelievable I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll talk a little off air. I'm not going to talk about really what's going on down there, but no, it's a fun deal though. And then like I've been to a game at Penn State when I was younger. I saw a game at Penn State during a whiteout. Wow, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've heard
So
Penn State's pretty ruckus.
dude, it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen for sports. And I've been to a
Yeah.
lot of places. I mean, I've been to Cameron Indoor to watch basketball. I've been to Kansas to watch basketball. So amazing venues, amazing history at both of those places. All those. My next on the list would be like, yeah, I definitely obviously want to go and see a game at Bryant Denny. And I have always wanted to go to a game at the Swamp. Always. So that one, and then I haven't been to Death Valley either for a conference game or
I
anything
want to
like
go to
that. I've
Knoxville.
been to Death
That's number
Valley
one on my
once,
list.
but I've never been to
Knoxville's on my list, number one.
Bro, definitely. After that Alabama game last year and the way that they that place was insane. And they
Yeah,
put 110,000 or something in there now?
beautiful too. Beautiful area. My little brother actually just went. He traveled to. He's a 2026 quarterback. He went to FSU, Cincinnati, Kentucky, Georgia Tech, I believe, but also hit up
Good for him.
Tennessee. And he said that was by far he went to Gainesville. He's like, that was by far the coolest place we went to. He's like, just the way they kind of carried themselves. He's like, I loved it. He's like, I really, really enjoyed it. He's like, it was a gorgeous stadium, gorgeous place. Like it was sick. And honestly,
Right, and
like
Josh
I'm gonna
is a
get
hell of a coach too, man. He's done a great job everywhere he's been so far.
stop
I
it.
mean
Don't do that. No, I'm not gonna support that conversation. I've said enough. I've said enough positive about Tennessee. And this is something I mean, I get a lot of flack.